Hi Year 6, this is your geography lesson for Tuesday the 23rd of February. We're going to be thinking about some of the impacts that tourism has on mountain communities and mountain areas. So why do people travel to the mountains and what impact can they have? And you can see there's two mountain climbers there. So the aim of the lesson is that you can describe how tourism affects mountain regions. To be successful, you'll be able to say why people might visit the mountains, what some of the effects of people visiting mountain areas could be, how can we limit the damage to an area from tourism, and who is responsible for limiting that damage. Okay, so first of all, why do people visit mountains? So I want you to pause the video, have a little think, what are the reasons? And I know from looking at this picture I can think of one of them straight away. Okay, hopefully you've come up with some ideas. Straight away I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, yep, I would want to go there and look at that view. That looks incredible. People might want to visit the mountains because they like keeping fit. People might enjoy the challenge of mountain climbing. Sometimes people might do it to raise money for charity. Might get sponsored. Some people go to mountain areas like the Alps for the skiing. People might want to go and look at the wildlife that you get in those mountain regions that you don't get in other areas. Photographers may go, or people that like taking photographs, and obviously for mountain climbing, for the challenge of mountain climbing. Now, I'll put the link to this video for you to watch in the description underneath the video. Okay, so make sure you always look in the description, because I always put a few video links on there for you for extra things that you can watch just to help you with your understanding of whatever we're learning about. Okay, so what impact does tourism have? So here's some interesting figures. 13 million people live in the Alps. 100 million people visit the Alps every year. That's interesting, isn't it? So imagine if 240 people visited our classroom every year. Would they come spread across the year? Would they come in bigger groups or at specific times? Imagine if they only came over 2 or 3 weeks. That would be about 80 people per week. What impact would that have on us? Would there be enough space for all of us? Would there be enough chairs? What about the noise? They'd all need feeding. They might leave litter. So you can see actually there might be some negative impacts of tourism. So there are some really good aspects to it. So the economic activity, that means that people do spend money when they arrive. So it can be a really good thing, tourism. It does bring money into the areas, it helps businesses. But there is obviously an environmental impact where there might be pollution, there might be noise, there might damage the beauty of the area. But, you know, the social impact can be a lovely thing, different cultures mixing, meeting people, meeting more friends. So if you thought about the impact on our classroom, it would bring more money into the school, could buy new resources, but they'd bring a lot more noise, there'd be a lot less space, might be more hands to help tidy up. Socially, you'd make more friends, but then if there was only one teacher, can you imagine, you wouldn't get much help, would you? Right, this sheet is in your pack that you're going to pick up this week. Don't think you'll have it by this lesson. So you can either wait till you've got your sheet, or you can split your page into 2, because I'd like you to tell me about the positive and negative impacts of tourism. Now, these little bits are a little bit small here for you to read, so the next slide has got them slightly bigger. Okay, so I'd like you to decide what are the positive impacts, so the good things about tourists visiting a mountain area, and what are the negative things, the bad things. Okay, which do you think have the biggest impact? Let's have a little look then. So what can be done to actually avoid these things as well? So increased numbers of visitors may cause damage to the ecosystems through erosion. So in other words, lots and lots of people visiting might cause the rock and the soil and the land to wear away. And that might mean that you can't grow the normal plants, or certain animals might not be able to get the food that they need. So to avoid this happening, the people that live there can have marked paths, fence off vulnerable areas, or you can have guides to show you where to walk or climb, so that certain areas are left protected. What about more buildings such as restaurants and hotels? That could destroy habitats. Well, what you can make sure is that there is strict planning criteria, And that again can protect those fragile or those vulnerable areas. Now, sometimes when lots of people want to live in an area, it means that the houses get really expensive. And then the people that have always lived there, the local people, can't afford to buy houses anymore. You need to make sure that there are strict planning regulations so that there are still affordable homes being built for local people. Lots of people visiting an area can bring increased noise and disruption for the locals. You need to have strict planning controls, especially for places like hotels and bars that can be noisy, to make sure that if there's a residential area, that means where people are living in their homes, trying to lead their normal lives, they're not on holiday, making sure that it stays quiet for them. What about more litter? Need to make sure that there's more bins, or there's more cleaners, or need to make sure that there's a group levy on a climbing group so they know that they can't leave the litter because otherwise they're going to have to pay a fine. Or you could encourage tourists to act responsibly, so lots of signs, lots of guides telling you. What about changes to employment opportunities? So that might mean that people want to take up jobs in tourism and they stop doing the traditional jobs of an area. Make sure that there are educational courses to keep those traditional skills being used, or heritage centres, and they can become a tourist attraction to keep all those local skills, traditional skills going. Money spent by tourists might not go into the local economy, it might go to people that own those big companies, those large hotels and restaurant chains, and that's not fair when it could be going into the local smaller businesses. So again, you need strict planning controls for the hotels and bars to make sure that the smaller businesses, the local businesses, traditional businesses can stay open, that they still get lots of profit, it doesn't just go to the large international companies. What about increased pollution from cars and buses and planes? Well, make sure that there's good public transport links, so people are getting buses instead of individual cars, or encourage greener transport like bikes or walking. Areas may lose their individuality by becoming holiday resorts with chain hotels and restaurants. So that means those massive big companies that you go to, so they just become like anywhere else in the world. So it doesn't look any different because it's a huge big international chain that you could get anywhere, like McDonald's or Starbucks. And actually when you go to an area, you want to see their local attractions. So make sure that, again, there's strict planning controls to ensure that there is a good mix of smaller and larger businesses. So who is responsible for imposing these different things? Who do you think can try and protect these mountain regions? So what I'd like you to do, split your page into two. What are the good parts or the good effects of tourism on a mountain area, and what are the bad or the negative? And what can you do to avoid some of those things happening? Okay, we can talk about it in the Zoom meetings. Please watch the videos that I put the links to underneath, and those will help you with your understanding of this. And it's a really interesting topic, actually. It might make you think about some holidays that you've been on and how you've acted when you've been a tourist. Good luck, Year 6.